Blog Talk Radio.
What's up, college football fans all around the nation, and welcome to another edition of Quick Slants. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Dev McMillan, but I'm here with the star of the show. Wouldn't be a Quick Slants without this man. We got War Room Sports college football contributor Fred Perdue in the building. Fred, what's up, man?
Man, I got a good feeling about this week. You know, Kane's got a win against a bad Virginia Tech team. I'm happy, even though it's a little bit of. I'm a little thankful in this Thanksgiving. We can call this the Thanksgiving edition.
Yeah, that win was more about bragging rights to a conference foe more than anything else. But yeah, everybody, this is our Thanksgiving edition. This is episode number 78 of Quick Slants, if you were wondering. We've been doing this for quite a minute now, just eking up to that 100th episode, Fred. But this is the Thanksgiving edition. This is also rivalry weekend edition. So we're going to do a little bit of a switch up on our pick'em portion. Usually we just do the pick'em straight from our pick'em contest that's on ESPN.com. But today we're going to go with rivalry weekend games. So everybody sit back, relax, put your seatbelt on, get your popcorn, because we are off and running. Quick Slant starts now. All right, Fred. Big news. Les Miles hired at Kansas. What's up with this?
This one was very surprising. I didn't think this would happen at all. I heard the rumors. We all knew it was kind of coming. He'd be back. The grass eater, the voodoo king, whatever you want to call him. I mean, he all the superstitions. I mean, this was crazy. And Kansas hasn't been great at all. So, I mean, the last time I can honestly remember Kansas being decent in football was probably around 2010-ish. They at the time Aqib Talib was in college. That's how far back we have to go. So for me, when I look at this team, I don't think it's going to be much different than what we've seen over the last few years. Sometimes when you're a coach and you've been kind of pushed out at a big major university, you kind of have a little bit. You're thankful. Since we're going with the theme of Thanksgiving, you're a little bit more thankful for what you used to have. And you don't take it for granted, because now you're not recruiting Louisiana, Florida, Texas, Alabama. You're not getting those recruits. You're having to recruit the state of Kansas, who may put out maybe one or two half-decent recruits, 3, maybe 4-star recruits. And by the way, you're not even the most dominant university in your own state. So and you're not even the most famous in your state, because there's a junior college who has more recognition than you. So for me, it's one of those things that Les Miles might be biting off a little bit more than he can chew. But then again, when you're a coach in college football, when you get a nice fat contract, it's not as bad. But at the same time, 114 wins to 34 losses with LSU was pretty good. He'll receive $2.78 million annually in his contract. He'll get different bonuses that'll be due in 2020 and 2022. So he's collecting a check, and also he'll get a buyout. They reached a buyout at LSU for $1.5 million. Originally it was $5 million, but within that contract buyout, had he just taken the $5 million, it would have came out of his Kansas contract. How do you manage that, LSU? But however you manage that, they came out to a buyout of $1.5 million. So he's receiving it on both ends. Good job, Les Miles. Good job.
All right. Well, we're talking about the hired. Now let's talk about the fired. Colorado officially gives the axe to Mike McIntyre.
This one was kind of – I saw this coming a few weeks ago. The AD and the president were saying, this was one of those things that's a possibility. Whenever there's a hint of this, more than likely it's coming. It's going to happen. He was the 2016 Coach of the Year, and that's pretty good. He has a $10 million remaining on his contract, which runs through 2021. if he obtains new employment as a head coach in either the NFL or the NCAA, the school's contract obligations will be reduced by his new salary amount. So that's pretty good for him. 10-4 in 2016, again, which got him AP Coach of the Year. But since then, they've gone 10-13. So that's not great, and they're going to miss a bowl game for the fifth time in the last 6 seasons. So none of the negatives outweigh the positives. But again, it's Colorado, and you're in the Pac-12, where they actually they sometimes play defense and quarterbacks. Although for me, quarterbacks are developed out there, and the offense isn't terrible. They produced a lot of talent out of Colorado. One Chidobe Awuzie for the Cowboys, who's pretty good. Tedrick Thompson also in the NFL. So you've lost a ton of talent on the defensive side. And I think colleges a lot of times tend to jump the gun on getting rid of good coaches when you're at you're not at a premier university. You're at usually, and I might do a project on this at some point, ranking colleges by tiers, but they're in that maybe C- tier of major of D1 universities where you're not. The expectation is maybe 8-4 at max. It would take USC, Oregon, Utah, UCLA, everybody in that conference to be down for them to have, like in 2016, for you to max out at maybe 10 wins. And that's with a stacked defense with one of the best secondaries in college football, with a pretty good offense as well that took Oregon to the brink, not once but twice in one game. So it takes a lot of things to go right at a school like that, and you can really only maintain that for maybe a year or two. So temper your expectations, Colorado. You might have fired the right guy.
All right. That's what's up. This in other news, and I know we love to talk about this guy because every time we talk Heismanomics, his name comes up, and it usually comes up first. But your man, $50,000. I'm gonna take a stab at it today. Tua Tagovailoa. Did I get that right? Close. I usually
Tua
just call him
Tagovailoa.
Okay, that's not how it's spelled, but it's all good. Tua Tagovailoa. I'm just going to keep going with Tua because Fred's the expert here. So I'm going to just keep going with Tua. He actually passed A.J. McCarron. He's now the record holder for single-season touchdown passes. McCarron set the previous record in 2012 with 30 touchdown passes. Tua, he broke the record in a 68-yard touchdown pass to Irv Smith during the third quarter of their dismantling 50-17 of Citadel. But now he sits at 31 with 2 more scheduled games to go. I emphasize scheduled games because we all know that Alabama's going to be playing well past those 2 games. So what's your thoughts on this, man? Is he going to put this thing out of reach for a good long while by the time it's said and done?
It's safe to
or is he going to break it next year?
It's safe to say that he'll probably put this one out of reach. And what's crazy about this is for the majority of the season, he's only played in a half. So just think if he actually, if games were maybe 31-17, 35-14, something like that, where you're actually having to keep your quarterback in. And let's just say Alabama's run game wasn't working the way it was supposed to. Not to mention he's been injured. That's the crazy thing. And you mentioned that long touchdown pass to Irv Smith. I actually watched that Citadel Alabama game, and the first half I was saying, Alabama's in trouble for about a half because it was 10-10 and it was 7-0 and Alabama scores and then Citadel scores again and they get a nice field goal, they get a chance at another one to kind of put themselves up at the half. Kicker misses it. He actually made the kick, but it was a false start. I've never seen a false start on a field goal. But there was a false start on the field goal, and then everything. He missed the kick again, wide right, and then everything else just pretty much unraveled. This game was more it was on both sides of the ball too, because really and truly, you just don't play option-based teams. The Citadel's a military academy type school, so you're going to get a lot of what you see from Army, Navy, Air Force, a lot of those schools that run those triple option offenses that they're assignment-based offenses where if you as a defense, if you don't do your assignment, you're going to get gashed early and often, and the defense had to figure it out, and the offense wasn't hitting. So if those two things happen, a team can get up on you. But that pass to Irv Smith, it was just a strike, and Irv Smith did the rest, which he's going to be a guy you want to watch later on too. So Tua's making a lot of guys a lot of money going forward, either this year or next year. And as far as that touchdown thing, he has 2 scheduled games, but he has at least 3 because there's a bowl game, but that bowl game could turn into 2 because you know how we've already discussed this. I already know who's winning the national championship. I have a crystal ball here, so you have at least 4 games to take this thing out of reach. And I think the harder the games get in these last 4, you're going to see he's not going to be playing in only a half. So 3 touchdowns a game, next 4 games, you do the math, that's a lot of touchdowns.
So basically what I got out of that is if there was any team in the damn nation that could stay within, say, 14, 17 points of this team and he didn't have to sit fourth quarters out or sometimes some of the third quarter, then he mess around and be flirting with 50 with this record.
Close to
That's 1, or close to 50. You're flirting with 50. That's 1.
45,
and 2,
50 touchdowns, yeah. The only
and
thing
2,
now
Fred, the Heisman race wouldn't even feature any more names.
You could stop it to it. Everybody else is just getting the nice invite. They're getting a nice invite to New York, and they can hang out. But it's kind of this year, in a sense,
lucky for them, he sits out second halves and fourth quarters of games, so they can get invited to the dance, and somebody could potentially be close to winning, if not winning. Kyler Murray is the only one that's close.
Kyler Murray is the only one that's close, and he's having to put up Herculean efforts, and his games are like 3-4 point games, or it comes down to a batted down pass in overtime. I mean, Tua's no game has been close, but I mean, you're going to see the likes of at least Auburn, Georgia, maybe Clemson, depending on how these rankings fall, and maybe just maybe Notre Dame. That's going to be a very tough road, and all of those defenses are very solid. So now this will tell us, this 4-game stretch he's probably about to go on will tell us so much about him. And hopefully he's healthy because I want to see every little bit of it.
All right, so as we approach rivalry week, full disclosure, Fred and I, we're recording a little bit early this week because, you got the holiday week and, brother's going to be out of pocket. We're going to be off. We're going to be doing things with the fam this week. So we're recording a little bit early this week. So we haven't gotten the official playoff rankings for the week, but enough happened for us to think that they will most likely stay the same. So those top 4 teams that we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks, leading up to rivalry week, the top 4, they're facing a tough 2-game stretch to end out this season. What are your thoughts on some of those games? How tough is it?
This one's going to be tough for at least 2 of these teams. Alabama, number 1, has to face off against Auburn, and all bets are off. This is one, that cliche they say, throw all the records out the window, nothing else matters. These 2 teams hate each other more than anything. Other teams, they lose. If they beat this team and go 1-11 the rest of the year, they don't care because that's a successful year. That's Auburn, Alabama. That's the Iron Bowl. I've seen this thing go down to, Alabama didn't run the ball well, and Cam Newton just came out and just in the second half and destroyed them. I've also seen a kick 6, the craziest play I've ever seen. I mean, this rivalry has brought so many crazy memories over the last few years, and it's really all been in the Nick Saban era. I mean, going back, I wasn't really huge on this rivalry in the early 2000s, and the late 90s because neither team was really all that great. And well, Auburn was okay, but not great. There wasn't much on the line. But now Auburn can ruin Alabama's season and say F you for one more game, proverbially, or Alabama can just continue just bringing a hammer down on this team and continue on where they're going. Clemson has a bit of an easier test, not an easy test. It's an SEC team in South Carolina, but Clemson, they're just a machine right now, and you don't know which South Carolina team you're going to get. For Notre Dame, they get to play a USC team that is in shambles. USC has a freshman quarterback in JT Daniels. Clay Helton is on the hot seat. He's on the hottest of hot seats, which we talked about earlier in the season. In Michigan, they play against one of their hated rival, Ohio State. This is the first time I've seen in a while where I don't think Ohio State, they've been playing teams that they shouldn't be in close games. They shouldn't have been in a close game with Maryland, who had a running back that ran for 290 yards in the first half, and with only one pass completion in the first half, and they barely found a way to win. And yet, at the end of the day, I've seen the craziest of crazies happen where Michigan, Ohio State, I remember the days of Troy Smith and Chad Henne just dueling it out. Ted Ginn just making play after play. I mean, I remember how many times has J.T. Barrett just ruined their season, Michigan's season. So this game will really determine some things. And if any of these teams lose and it's a close game, you still have some form of a championship game. So let's say Alabama loses and it's a close game, they still have to play Georgia, who would obviously move up. So they'd have a chance to get backdoor into a playoff spot yet again. And so this is one of those things where every team from 1 to 6 has a chance. Even Oklahoma in their proverbial Big 12 championship game against West Virginia, they have a chance to kind of get in this thing. They just need a little bit of help. So if you're 1 to 6, you got a chance. You got a little bit of a chance.
All right. So let's go into our Pick'em segment for the week. And like we told you in the open, this is a special edition Pick'em segment this week because we are not doing the games that are on the ESPN.com War Room Sports Pick'em contest. We're going to give that a rest for the week, and we're going to give you games that are strictly from rivals, because it is rivalry weekend. So we're going to give you some of the great rivalry games out there. So Fred's going to give you a little bit of information on those particular games. And we're going to start out with Ole Miss versus Mississippi State.
The Egg Bowl. Oh, and this is the great part about college football that kind of differentiates itself from the NFL. All of these games, for the most part, have some form of a nickname. I love these names. The Egg
and
Bowl.
A trophy.
Yeah, and they have a trophy, too, and we know how those things go. Some teams don't even want to give up their trophy. They'll hold on to it and say, you got to come get it after the game. So this is going to be one of the crazy ones. Mississippi State at 21 versus Ole Miss. You're going to see a ton of fireworks in this one. I really, really like there's going to be a defensive line for Mississippi State with Jeffrey Simmons and the rest of that wrecking crew. Those guys gave Alabama fits up front, stunting all over the place. This defensive line is going to give Ole Miss a big issue. But on the other side of things, Ole Miss has a very, very potent offense. Jordan Ta'amu, really decent quarterback in college. Whereas as far as a college quarterback, Greg Little, not to be confused with the former receiver Greg Little, but offensive tackle Greg Little, one of the top prospects out of high school. Now it's his time after following Laramie Tunsil, who moved on to the NFL with the Dolphins. He's one of the top tackles in the country. He'll be protecting Ta'amu, who has a lot of weapons to throw to. We remember a certain Eric Metcalf that played for the Browns. Well, the lineage goes down at Ole Miss DK Metcalf, wide receiver. He's probably the best of the bunch. He can do it all. You have the A.J. Brown, a bigger slot receiver. He's going to be a big focus. He's not a burner, but he's one of those guys that he just finds ways to get open, and you know how those guys are. They're just shifty, and they just know how to get open, and if they get in open field, say goodbye. This is going to be a very, very fun game to watch, seeing offense versus defense. I don't see a ton of offense coming from from Mississippi State. Nick Fitzgerald, a.k.a. Tebow Light, he's not the best thrower of the football, but he can. That running game makes its way down the field. So I'm taking Ole Miss in this one. I know I might regret it because Mississippi State's defensive line just gets after people. But I think Jordan Ta'amu and the rest of that offense, those guys can stay. If that offense starts hitting early and often, I think this team can find a way to win. So give me Ole Miss.
All right, so let's go down to Florida. Let's go UCF versus USF.
This is the game that tells us if UCF is for real. Probably the second best team in the behind third best team behind UCF in Houston. USF hasn't really had a great season, but when you play in a lesser conference, you can kind of get away with this. If we remember a few years ago, USF was finding ways to be right where UCF is right now. But Mackenzie Milton is really a really good quarterback for UCF. He's one of those three Hawaiian guys that we've been talking about all year, whether it's Tua, whether it's Milton, or also Jordan Ta'amu. Hawaii's producing top quarterbacks now. Thanks, Marcus Mariota. We really appreciate it. But UCF has been putting points up on everyone. They've only had really one game where they struggled. That was against Temple a few weeks ago, and they still won that game 52-40. So I think UCF will win this game. USF has not shown me much this year that can say that they can put a full game together. They can put halves together. But USF has really been struggling to put a full game together. And play calling is a big part of it on the offensive side of the ball for them. They don't run the ball well, they don't throw the ball well, they never have a complete game for them. If UCF gets up on them early, it's going to be tough to come back. UCF can put points up in droves. So give me UCF to win this one on the road.
All right, we got Oklahoma versus West Virginia.
This one's going to be a shootout. If you saw last.
All right, I think, Fred, you're having some technical difficulties with the microphone, so I guess I got to talk to the people until you get back. Oh, here he is. I was about to stall for you, but Fred's technical difficulties.
The powers that be don't want us giving all this good information. But
they don't want this information.
We can't silence them. So
all right, Oklahoma, West Virginia.
Oklahoma, West Virginia, man. This was going to be a shootout. Simply put, if you saw what West Virginia and Oklahoma State did, if you saw what Oklahoma and Oklahoma State did, if you've seen any Big 12 game at all season, you'll know that these teams don't play any defense. There's zero defense played in this game. Oklahoma is a 2.5-point favorite in this one. The last time these two played, Oklahoma won 59-31. This was going to be a night game. It's in West Virginia, so that was going to be a tough one. But I think when you have Kyler Murray under center, he's just such a different player. He has a different gear when he takes off the run. He's pretty accurate. And for me, when I look at West Virginia, I don't see where they have enough on the defensive side to really keep up. If you can't keep up against Oklahoma State and they're not as good, they couldn't beat Oklahoma, that's going to be a problem. So give me Oklahoma to win this one on the road. The cold won't bother them, and they know what's on the line. They have to win to even have a chance at this one, and hopefully that Texas loss doesn't come back to bite them in the butt at the end of the year. Give me Oklahoma.
All right, Oklahoma. see what you're going to do here. Let's go over to the West Coast again. We're going to go Washington versus Washington State.
Washington State has had a really good season. At the beginning of the year, if you told me Washington would have 3 losses, I would tell you you're crazy. If you told me this Washington State team would be a top 10 team, I would probably say maybe if they can stop somebody. Gardner Minshew is a really, really good quarterback. He's so accurate. One of the best in the country. He right now is just tearing teams apart. And when you see what he's been able to do just last week, 473 yards and 7 touchdowns and no interceptions against Arizona. I mean, there are quarterbacks throughout the country who don't throw for 7 touchdowns in maybe a quarter of the season, and he's doing it in a game. Mike Leach in that offense, it doesn't matter where Mike Leach goes. His quarterbacks just seem to – they may not make it to the NFL and be great, but they just find ways to just put up big, gaudy numbers. But the defense is pretty good too. Give me Washington State in this one. Chris Peterson and company, they're really struggling on the defensive side. They lost their star left tackle. Jake Browning he's okay, but can he win you games? He has enough arm to get you through, to manage his way through the middle of the season. But him and Myles Gaskin have not been as explosive as they have been in the last couple of years. This is a test of going from Boise State to a Washington team where you can literally see there's a slight decline, and if you see that decline, what's Chris Peterson going to do in recruiting to keep up? Because now Washington State seems to be rolling over the last couple of seasons. Give me Washington State.
All right, and we're going to take it back over to the state of Florida. The bigger guns, we're going to go Florida versus Florida State.
This one's a crazy one because if we saw at the beginning of the year, I thought Dan Mullen, new coach, Florida has a good enough defense, but who's the quarterback? Felipe Franks, not too excited about that, but they found a way to navigate their way through an 8-3 season. And quite honestly, Florida State has been so disappointing. I knew that they'd have some issues up front on the offensive line, but I didn't think it would be this bad. Willie Taggart has had a really, really tough road throughout this season, and so many just dysfunctional moments, whether it's the loss to a 6-5 Miami team, or also having struggles against teams like Samford. Yeah, they beat Boston, top 25 Boston College team by 1 point at home. That's not really saying much. I mean, they should beat that team. What I see in this game is this is going to be an old school, low scoring game. DeAndre Francois, I really like him as a college quarterback, but the one thing I've always said for the last couple seasons has been he's a bit gun shy because his offensive line has been very, 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 very below average since his freshman season, whether it was the injury against Alabama last season or now coming back healthy, but now they're running an offense that really he can run the offense, but they don't have the offensive line to protect him to run this offense. They're running no huddle, this Gulf Coast offense they're running. Sometimes as a coach you have to, and that was the genius of Jimbo Fisher, was many fans, they blame Jimbo offensively because he ran the ball so much, but he understood my offensive line isn't good enough to throw this ball and run this offense the way I want to run it, so we got to run the football. Well, now they can't run the football either. They have some bright spots on the offensive side, whether it's Cam Akers, who will be gone next year. He has one more year. He's one of the top running backs in the country, but he just, again, doesn't have an offensive line to block for him. Nyquan Murray is a big, deep threat. Also, on the other side of the ball, you definitely want to watch out for Brian Burns, defensive lineman. He can get after quarterbacks quickly. On the other side of things, Florida has some C.C. Jefferson on the defensive line is a guy you're going to want to watch. He gets after quarterbacks. He loves to eat quarterbacks. Polite on the defensive line also is one of those big-time defensive tackles that really makes plays too. Give me Florida to win this one. I just don't trust Florida State to win back-to-back. And this offensive line bothers me. Florida's defense is just too good.
All right, well, let's go to that aforementioned Iron Bowl. We talked about that earlier in the show when we talked about Tua and some of the games he had left coming up. Let's talk about Alabama versus Auburn.
Auburn has been so very disappointing this year. But I remember back when we kind of previewed these teams, I said, you know, Auburn, when they're at best, they have a quarterback who can run the football. He's a very mobile guy. He can throw the ball accurately, but he has his wheels, and he has a complimentary running back. And you can think, if you think back to guys like Cam Newton, when he was there, he had when Cam Newton was there, he had a big time running game. You also had Nick Marshall. He had a big running game. And now when you look at Jarrett Stidham, he doesn't have that. And he's more of a passer. And that's what Gus Malzahn wanted, was he wanted a running game. So when you look at Gus Malzahn, he wants a passing game that can literally, they can go down the field whenever they want. Jarrett Stidham transferred from Baylor. He made plays at Baylor, transferred after all of the craziness that happened there. But he hasn't been the guy that just makes this offense a completely different beast. For me, when I look at this Alabama team, they do their secondary isn't great, but they're getting better. But they stop the run, and if you make Auburn a one-dimensional team, they don't throw the ball well anyway. That will help a secondary that has kind of struggled against some of the better teams. The front seven at Alabama, featuring Quinnen Williams, Raekwon Davis, Dylan Moses, Mack Wilson, Anthony Jennings. I mean, the first rounders that are in this front seven are going to just suffocate this Auburn offense. For me, when I look at this one, I don't even need we can forget about Tua and Jerry Jeudy, Irv Smith, all of those guys. You can forget all those guys on the offensive side. This game's on defense. Alabama's going to win this one, and it's not even going to – I honestly don't think this one's going to be that close at the end. The score will say maybe they won by 21, but I think, honestly, it's one of those games where it feels like this game's just a complete domination versus what the score says. So it's going to be one of those games. The score won't indicate how bad Alabama's going to just eat this team alive. They know what's on the line. They have to win. They don't have a choice. Give me Alabama. I have no choice. I picked this team to win the national championship.
All right, we definitely got to speed. We got to go to lightning round with these last few. Let's go Michigan versus Ohio State.
Michigan's defense, led by Rashawn Gary, Devin Bush. This team's going to really give Ohio State fits. This Ohio State defense doesn't seem the same without Nick Bosa and company. J.K. Dobbins is not. J.K. Dobbins, I thought he was going to be a better running back than he was. He's bulked up. He's slowed down. It's pretty much all on Dwayne Haskins. Can Dwayne Haskins really do this? I don't think so. He's one of those quarterbacks. You pressure him, he folds. Michigan's offense under Shea Patterson will be able to score enough points. I think Michigan's defense will put a little pressure on Don. Don Jones is just one of those guys who can dial up a defense where he can just put pressure on quarterbacks. Pressure bust pipes. Give me Michigan.
Pressure damn sure does bust pipes. I've seen it over and over again. South Carolina versus Clemson.
Clemson boasts the best defensive line in college football. You have 4 first-rounders, whether it's Austin Bryant, whether it's Christian Wilkins, whether it's Cleveland Farrell, or my favorite Dexter Lawrence, who is a complete animal. These guys are going to get after Jake Bentley and company. Don't expect much from South Carolina. I do want to see what Deebo Samuel can do. He's one of the more explosive college football wide receivers. But when you got Sunshine, a.k.a. Trevor Lawrence, behind center for Clemson, and Travis Etienne, those two are just a great compliment to each other, not to mention T. Higgins, Amari Rogers, Hunter Renfrow, who seems like just like J.T. Barrett a few years ago, where it seems like he's been in college forever. He's been in college since Clemson won they were in their first national championship against Alabama. I feel like he's been there forever now. He's got a chance to go after that second national championship, and he knows what's on the line. He's not going to let his team down. Give me Clemson in this one, and this is going to be a runaway at the end.
All right, we got this old rivalry, Notre Dame versus USC.
Not much to say. Give me Notre Dame. Defensively, Notre Dame is just is having a dominant year. Very much like a few years ago when they had Manti Te'o and company. This offense, the offense isn't great because Ian Book is kind of in and out of the lineup. Whereas when he came in for Brandon Wimbush, he was throwing the ball all around the yard. But I think the defense will hold up. JT Daniels is not really. He's having a typical freshman season. Very hyped guy, but I don't think this team's ready for that yet. Him and Amar St. Brown are doing everything they can. That's going to be how is that going to work out against Notre Dame secondary? Not too well. Notre Dame is going to put pressure on JT Daniels. If he folds and he doesn't, if they're not able to pick that up, they're in trouble. This might be the last game Clay Helton coaches in a USC coaching shirt. Just saying.
All right. Well, it's. I love of course, everybody does love these rivalries much more when both teams are at full capacity. It's hard to catch both of these teams in their upswing at the same time, just like it is for most of these rivalries. But like I said earlier, especially with the Iron Bowl, you throw the records out the window on some of them. This one might not be that one. At least not this time.
Last time this one mattered, it was the Bush push. That's been a while. Right.
And plus, like you said, back in the Manti Te'o years, like they weren't going to lose this game with Manti's girlfriend in the stadium. So, watching from the
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
All right, so last but not least, before we get you out of here, LSU versus Texas A&M.
LSU doesn't have a ton to play for anymore. Alabama's kind of taken that away. Alabama's been eligible for that SEC title game for about 4 weeks now. They kind of ran roughshod on that one. So at this point, it's just putting away Texas A&M. A&M's offense is pretty good with Kellen Mond under center, Travion Williams at running back. He's been a force. Multiple 200-yard games this season. Jimbo's really kind of gotten conservative with the play calling. He may not have a chance to open it up. LSU's defense is just so good. Greedy Williams on the outside, Devin White on the inside. Hopefully there's no ridiculous targeting penalties. Joe Burrow hasn't been great, but he hasn't killed you unless it's against Alabama, which we knew that was happening. Give me LSU to win this one, and it's going to be on the defense. They're going to get after Kellen Mond and company. I just don't think Texas A&M has enough up front.
All right, that is our special Thanksgiving/rivalry week pick'em segment for you. Fred gave you the knowledge, dropped all the gems on you, and he even gave you the picks. So look, man, I don't know why I always have to tell you people this, but look, once the pick'em contest, once you go in there for the week to pick, if any of these games are on here, then you already got the answers to the test. So do the right thing. Anyway, Fred, this is it's a big holiday weekend. Let everybody know where you're going to be on Saturday and how they can get in contact with you if they want to talk a little smack.
You guys can catch me on Twitter, Fred Produce CFB. I'll be talking a lot of college football throughout the week. This is that week where you get a little bit of everything. So everybody enjoy your Thanksgiving too. I'm thankful for some college football, some good food, family, and all of that great stuff.
No doubt, and we are going to sign off from here. To catch everything we do, warroomsports.com. If you want to catch archive episodes of Quick Slants, you can do that at War Room Sports, the War Room Sports YouTube page. If you're an NFL fan, you can catch Fred and I also on Cover 2 with McMillan and Purdue. That's also on the War Room Sports YouTube page. And warroomsports.com. So like my partner said a few seconds ago, everybody out there who celebrates, make sure you have a happy, wonderful, and safe Thanksgiving. Don't eat yourself into a food coma. Just come close to it, but know when to say when. And we'll talk to you guys next week like we always tell you around this time. Don't accept mediocrity. Be steadfast in the war against ignorance. And we'll see you chumps on top. Peace.
Yo, what happened to peace? What happened to peace? Peace.
War Room Sports. www.warroomsports.com. What? Ain't no more to it.